everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today we continue with the Bestiarum, a dive into the respective species of the Halo universe, and we continue with the Unggoy. Commonly known as grunts, the title is an accurate assessment of the Unggoy species' largely servile role in the Covenant, where they are generally utilised as maintenance workers and exploitable infantry. The Unggoy are a xenoarthropodic species made stout and hardy from the volatile climates and craggy conditions of their homeworld Balaho. When first incorporated into the Covenant, most of their species was pressed into brutal work conditions with no privileges. Eventually, a brief rebellion in High Charity over mistreatment by the Kigyar forced their Sangheili taskmasters to reconsider the Unggoy's value, ultimately leading to them being allowed to arm themselves and to be granted a measure of social standing through service in the military. Although they effectively became cannon fodder on the Covenant front lines, the Unggoy proved to be effective warriors and dangerous in large numbers. Unggoy are broad and stocky with short legs, long arms, and bone-like plates on their bodies. Their limbs are well adapted for clambering and crawling over rocky terrain, but their lack of fine dexterity limits manipulation of small, delicate objects. The Unggoy's elongated cranium ends in a blunt, bony face, with two wide-set eyes and a small mouth lined with sharp teeth. As they are typically crouched or cowering, their size and strength can be easily underestimated. Their respiratory system requires methane, and Unggoy will suffocate in conditions comfortable for most other species, forcing them to wear specialized rebreather packs and temperature regulators to function in terrestrial environments. There are a number of different morphological variations within the Unggoy species, the most prominent in the Covenant being the Carve, the Zimzib, and Rit-Rit. When the Covenant first came upon the Unggoy, their world was in the midst of an ecological collapse from overpopulation and pollution. They capitulated immediately to envoys, binding their species to the Covenant's promise of salvation for service. The Unggoy were fervent converts, though restricted to menial roles as low caste members of the Alien Alliance. When a conflict with the Kigyar led to the Unggoy's full-scale rebellion on High Charity, the invocation of an arbiter was required, resulting in the partial glassing of Balaho. Although the Unggoy relented, they were quickly forgiven and granted access into the military. With the Covenant's demise, its many splinter sects continued to incorporate Unggoy into their numbers, most of their kind eager to escape the political strife which erupted on Balaho in its wake. By nature, Unggoy are gregarious and jovial creatures with strong familial bonds. When not under military or family supervision, they enjoy sleeping, eating, storytelling, and playing games, in roughly that order. They also enjoy narcotic infusions in their methane atmosphere mixture, which the Covenant provided in large amounts to stiffen their resolve in combat. Much of the Unggoy's native culture was overwritten through the early years of their indoctrination into the Covenant. With a simplistic, adaptable language and lack of any real religious convictions, their species was both obeisant and malleable. The Unggoy's broader social structures and culture have receded significantly since their incorporation into the Covenant, though some elements still remain on Balaho. Unggoy thrive in relatively small tribal communities that are led by the females of their species. Within these tight-knit clans, they generally work with each other peacefully and with little conflict. Although the Unggoy's physical resilience and sheer numbers might allow them a considerable advantage on the galactic stage, their anxious nature and lack of ambition have kept them in thrall of other great powers. Even after the dissolution of the Covenant, many returned to familiar contracts with Sangheili and Jiralhane in order to support their swiftly growing families on Balaho and meagre landholdings. The Unggoy homeworld is Balaho, also known as Tala 4, a frigid and brackish ice world with a thick methane atmosphere produced by volcanoes, permafrost plateaus, tundra bogs, and cold wetlands. Balaho has two natural satellites, Buwan and Padpad, both of which are used by the Covenant for manufacturing and mining. Apart from a relatively thin band of brackish tidal flats, vast low-lying salt bogs and shallow volcanic mountain ranges located on the equator, much of this world is too cold to be inhabited. Even with aggressive breeding restrictions instituted by the Sanshayum, the Unggoy still maintained an extensive population on this world, much of which is clustered in relatively modest hovel networks, with a handful of larger and more developed cities that granted blessings of technology from the prophets. The short-lived dominion of Cortana and her created initially proved promising for Balaho. Millennia of self-inflicted damage and centuries of neglect by the Covenant stood primed to be undone at an incredible rate, aided by billions of Unggoy rallying to the cause of remaking their world and their place in the galaxy. And while the Created's hold over local systems has ultimately been curtailed, attacks on Balaho and nearby colonies by Covenant splinters and pirates looking for levies and supplies have been vastly reduced. They are largely deterred by new warships built and crewed by Unggoy, eager to free their fellows and other abused former Covenant minor species from rapacious slavers and raiders. Although seemingly countless in number, the Unggoy still represent all that they historically have, the lowest tier of combat fighters. Nevertheless, the Banished have introduced a modicum of honour to their former role, rewarding Unggoy who perform well with a higher station and greater responsibilities. It is of little surprise that the squat diminutive Unggoy still inhabit the same role as they had within the Covenant military, effectively serving as cannon fodder for the Banished infantry forces. Of all species employed, the Unggoy are the weakest and the least inclined towards thoughtful strategy or courageous action. Despite this fact, however, and given the Banished's unrelenting emphasis on the survival of the strong, the Unggoy have thrived within their numbers. Set free from artificial stratification that limited their advancement within the Covenant hegemony, and now compensated well for their conscription, the Unggoy are no longer simple slave labour. And while many remain indifferent to the futility of their former status or the opportunities now afforded them, a handful of Unggoy have shown remarkable ambition, excelling in military craft and even garnering the favour of various warlords. Some Unggoy, such as Yap Yap, have fashioned themselves as Banished leaders, strategically building up powerful clans in order to no longer live in the shadows of others, but to gain renown for themselves. At the very bottom of the Banished military infantry are the Unggoy conscripts. With rudimentary armour capable of providing baseline protection and breathable methane in unfavourable oxygen-rich environments, these Unggoy represent the largest fighting element within the Banished. Commanders generally consider Unggoy conscripts as low-tier frontline soldiers with minimal weaponry and even less tactical insight, demanding that they be deployed in large numbers and under the direction of Juralhane or Sanghili leadership. Without this, conscripts tend to be aimless and driven into hiding by enemy fire, ultimately functioning as little more than a battlefield diversion. Under the command of stronger warriors, Unggoy conscripts can pose a genuine threat, but only when used in coordinated attacks, launching a barrage of firepower at unsuspecting opponents. Conscripts can only advance in their rank if they show extraordinary courage and are responsible for meaningful achievement during combat. Above the conscripts is the Unggoy class known simply as Assault, a role designed explicitly for direct application of combat forces against an enemy site or asset. Heavily armoured and equipped with a better arsenal than the conscript, Unggoy with the Assault class are far more resilient and aggressive than those below them and are typically entrusted with more individual responsibilities and duties, having already proven themselves on the battlefield. Before this stage of advancement, Unggoy are taken through a rigorous training regimen designed to root out weakness and fear from their rank. Without the promise of transcendence after death which the Covenant used to incite loyalty, the Banished employ the sheer pragmatism of financial gain and the Unggoy's desire to be remembered well by those in their family. For the Assault rank, both of these tactics have proven to be just as effective as anything the old Empire offered. The highest individualized rank within the Covenant species is the Ultra, echoing the Covenant role in formality, but with some noteworthy changes. Using dense, powerful armor and having access to heavier arsenal of weapons, Ultras are formidable soldiers, even capable of being dispatched on their own to achieve specific objectives. Most often, however, they are affixed to select detachments and paired with Sanghili, with whom they have shared history in battle. Unggoy Ultras are the apex of their species in combat readiness and capability, and have tasted the glory of promotion. Many are eager to prove themselves against the enemy. Despite this apparent bravado, most Banished commanders recognise and strategically take into consideration that even Unggoy Ultras are still Unggoy at heart, and if a sufficiently challenging enemy arrives, they can be quickly put to flight. For this reason, they are generally given orders to guide and direct the lesser rates of their own species, relieving their commanders of this burdensome task. Unlike the other rates, the mule has no formal corollary with the Old Covenant Empire and was a novel creation of the Banished in order to take advantage of the Unggoy's strong, broad frame and their natural ability to navigate difficult terrain, even while encumbered. An Unggoy mule carries the Banished weapons into battle, giving those in command the ability to dramatically adjust their arsenal without being forced to return to the armory or requesting a supply drop that could give away their location. This design saw value during the long expeditions the Banished conducted across the Ark's perilous surface, where rearmament was virtually impossible. Outfitted with a hyperdense battle harness holding weapons mounts on the back, those selected for this role must be capable of effectively engaging the enemy to protect their cargo. Most mules stay close to their designated commander, not only to provide their superior with ease of access to the weapons they carry, but also for their own personal protection. While the Ultra is the zenith of the Unggoy's rank progression, beyond it lies the role of Bouncer, a position only available by special appointment. Captains, enforcers and even warlords can summon battle-tested Unggoy for this highly acclaimed duty, where they effectively operate as an armoured bodyguard protecting the clan's leaders and assets. Augmented by powerful energy shields, most Bouncers have no equal among the Unggoy in terms of skill or ability, but they are always at the mercy of their commander, whom they serve, and are typically never given authority beyond the task they are assigned. The position of Bouncer holds both the highest prestige and the greatest risk of any Unggoy role within the Banished, requiring only those who are willing to lay down their lives in battle, and guaranteeing such sacrifices with ample remunerations for those within the Unggoy's family. Due to this, Bouncers are held in high esteem by those who remain on Balaho, both for the peril they choose to embrace, and for the wealth they represent. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on future content, and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. It really does help the channel out significantly. Feel free to pop a comment below on anything you'd like me to cover next, and before signing off I just want to give a shout to my Patreon supporters, Spartan10148, my singular contender class ancilla, Falcon, Jordan and Poseidon, the metarchs of my facility, Sylphia, Ashley, Esoteric, Spartan 1029 and Chris Allen, my dutiful monitors, Darian, Legion, Labrat, Spartan 137, Chris, Element 0, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger Cult, Evermore's Personal Devil, Scion Esports and Saber, my diligent sub-monitors, my dominating fleet of Strato Sentinels, and my loyal enforcers, and all other patrons who continue to support the channel. I can't thank you guys enough. Big props to my Tier 0 YouTube members, Spartan 137, Talia, Fenrir, Bornstella and Jimbo, and all other YouTube members keeping the installation running on that glorious vacuum energy. And if you really love what I'm doing here, consider supporting the channel via the links in the description. Much love, take it easy, and find peace in the domain.